Well, I certainly think that one Brit will get on the podium this weekend, just not the one that you're expecting. By the way, I am now on Threads as well as Twitter. The username is here. You can go and follow me on those platforms. Now I actually want to talk about the liveries that I didn't discuss earlier this week. The Brad Pitt one, because we've seen, again, the AGP, XGP, XYZQ, whatever configuration is for a movie, so whatever. Either way, the livery here, it's just the 2019 Haas with Mercedes sponsors. The Mercedes sponsors do make a lot of sense because Lewis Hamilton is involved in the production and Mercedes helped build the F1 tub to surround the F2 car itself. And that Mechachrome engine is prone to blowing up now and again, so hopefully that does not hinder the actual production of this movie. And no, it's not going to be interacting with other F1 cars. They're going to film all of that stuff outside of practice sessions, so don't worry about that. Brad Pitt is not going to crash into Max Verstappen. Yeah, black and gold, it's fine. It harks back to the John Player special for the nth time. I'm sorry, the whole 2010 chicanery with Lotus Renault and then Haas doing it, it sort of ruined the luster of that configuration. It is nice to look at and the renders look very pretty, it's very shiny, but I'm sorry, it's just not as special for me anymore, but it's okay. It's okay for a movie. Then there's the Williams 800th Grand Prix livery, and I'm a little disappointed. I thought it was going to be something along the lines of a tribute to the FW15C, because they're celebrating the 30th anniversary, and we saw a picture of Alex wearing a logo that might have resembled that as a tribute cap, but it didn't carry over to the actual car, which is a shame. But then again, it's a smart livery. It's the Union Jack on the airbox and engine cover that is in the same hue and configuration as the Williams livery itself. And it's smart. It's a little bit dull, but it's sophisticated. It's very nuanced. It's very suave. And this nod to the 800th Grand Prix of their life is like that too. And good on them for getting to that milestone. Fair enough. It's fine. But one that isn't fine is the Aston Martin Valvoline livery. Boo! You ruined it! Seriously, all of the other sponsors on the Aston Martin car towed the line and went, okay, we'll make our logo white. So that means the green and the lime green will stand out very well. But nope! Valvoline's just come wading in for their one-off occasion and just going, hey, we're going to show our colours and you're going to like it. It is kind of a resemblance to the Union Jack, but it's very, very crass. Nowadays, sponsors are more willing to go either white or black in the minimalist style, but Valvoline doesn't seem to be one of those things. The whole blue-green should not be seen without a colour in between. We're now starting to see that. So in terms of fashion, the Aston Martin isn't fashionable anymore. I'm sorry. Now onto the actual teams. McLaren. Again, as I said, they're going to be in chrome this time out, but the main point is not about their livery. It's about the fact that we are now in the second stage of their actual upgrade package. The next bit will come in Hungary, but now Oscar's going to have the upgraded car too. Same with Lando. So I'm going to be very excited to see what Oscar can do in that same spec of car. And I would not be surprised at all if we get a double points finish on McLaren and maybe even Lando troubling the likes of Carlos Sainz for a podium position. Lando with the home boost will definitely feel very buoyed up from last time out and will carry that over to this race and then carry it over to the next race as well because McLaren do well at Hungary as well. But we're not predicting Hungary, we're predicting Silverstone. I don't even need to wear that bias hat anymore because it's just fact. McLaren did well last time out, and I think they'll do well again now because they'll have learnt from last week. They'll refine it. Lando was very tired at the end of that race. They'll actually have some proper practice sessions because they didn't get that last time, and they still did well. I'm thinking very, very highly for McLaren. The opposite for Mercedes, though, because after seeing Lando overtake Lewis at that time out, I think they're in an existential crisis right now. Mercedes don't really know what to do and where they are. Their upgrades are going to be coming for Silverstone. They've got a big one coming, but they're very, very reliant on those upgrades. And kind of like McLaren, they really big it up quite a bit, that this is going to solve all of our problems, like going back to conventional side pods. That's going to solve all our problems. And it did for a couple of races, but then Austria proved that that's not a guarantee. Upgrades can go wrong. And we saw that with Lewis complaining on the radio all the time and really getting their team down with Toto having to intervene. I know, I'm not trying to be biased. Loads of other drivers complain on the radio. The Ferrari drivers non-stop this season, of course. But in that situation with who Lewis Hamilton is, it's best to actually air your grievances in private during the debrief instead of rabbiting on about it during the race and getting everybody down. It's not a good look because people are going to be speculating, like I'm doing in this video right now. They need to solve out where they are and where their place is on the grid at the moment because I don't think that fourth place is a guarantee for them. I think they might be the fifth fastest car if they're not careful because again, upgrades are not a guarantee to make your car faster. They can actually send you the other way, perhaps. They will score. Both cars will score, but they'll be in the bottom half of the top 10. I think it's going to be a bit of a torrid time for Lewis. I know that he got second place last year and with some very masterful driving, but I don't think he'll replicate it this time around. Another thing I wanted to discuss, Pirelli. They are bringing a new spec of tyre for this time out, as well as doing a Pirelli tyre test session for 2024's tyres. And I feel this could actually change the dynamic of where the teams are at the moment, because the last time I saw this was in 2013. After the debacle at the British Grand Prix, when practically most of the grid had a tyre blowout at one point during the weekend, they changed the configuration of tyre to make it more durable. And from then, when Red Bull were having a okay campaign in 2013, they went on to utterly dominate. Teams went up and down the pecking order, things changed quite considerably, and I think that this could happen too, because they're making these tyres a lot more durable, and meaning that you can actually push a little bit harder. So maybe teams like Ferrari and Haas, they might not suffer so much with tyre degradation, and Hülkenberg actually score some points. But at the same time, it could make Red Bull even more dominant, but I wouldn't be surprised if things change a little bit, especially down in the lower half of the grid, when tyre compounds and the integrity of it matter more. Ferrari, I think they'll have a decent time of it this time out, because Carlos Sainz won last year. They seem to do pretty okay here, and with this new Pirelli tyre, they might actually last the distance. They might be able to make the tyre work with them even more. But at the same time, I'm really skeptical about their overall performance, because we've seen many times this year that the pit strategy can be a little bit off, and it does lead to complications with their drivers. But Carlos seems to be a little bit more confident in dealing with things in the here and then, and we might actually see him on the podium one more time. I just feel like he's got a good groove here, especially after getting his first win. Charles, though, hard to say. I feel like he will score points as well, but I don't think he'll be broaching the top 5. I think that he'll be struggling, just mainly for the fact that other teams are up there, and he might go for 5th, it might be 6th. But again, it depends on what Ferrari do in the pits, because this pit straight is the longest on the calendar, or certainly one of the longest. You're going to be losing 30 seconds here, so you got to get your strategies right, and you really got to make the most of the virtual safety cars as well. So Ferrari, you really need to be good here if you want a shot at the podium. Because I do think they could be the second fastest team, because they are bringing upgrades here and some really good ones too. So, here's hoping that they might get closer to Red Bull. Speaking of, they've got one more floor upgrade, and then Horner is effectively calling time on the RB19's upgrades to then focus on the RB20 for next year. So that means they can get a little bit of an advantage whilst they still have the cost cap penalty. So that means they can maintain their advantage going into next year, because people are thinking maybe they might be on the back foot. So I wouldn't be surprised that during the rest of the season, the other teams catch up in a false dawn sort of thing, and maybe we might see other teams winning by the time we get to the likes of Qatar, Abu Dhabi, but then in 2024 normal service may resume. But another thing to consider here is that Checo. Max, don't really need to worry about him, he'll probably win. Checo though, he needs to get into Q3. If he doesn't get into Q3, then Daniel Ricciardo is there. He is going to be doing the Pirelli tyre test with Red Bull next week, where they can actually compare very compellingly between the two drivers. He is being evaluated by Red Bull to see where his destiny will be, whether it's AlphaTauri or at Red Bull next year, or whether he might be just benched entirely. It's important for Checo to perform well here. He needs to be on the podium. He needs, ideally, to make it a Red Bull 1-2. So that means Helmut Marko will not be going, all right, Daniel, you're up. As for the rest of the grid, it's hard to say really. Again, with Haas, if this new Pirelli construct helps them actually not chew their tyres up in 10 laps, then this might lead to Nico Hülkenberg scoring more frequently and maybe pulling them up past Alfa Romeo into 7th place in the Constructors. I could see that, because that Haas car can be good, it can be quick. It just does not have the race pace, because it just munches through its tyres and then the drivers fall back down to the bottom of the grid. This sort of jeopardy could make Haas a little bit of a dark horse here in terms of being at the top of the back markers or within the midfield pack. They do have potential. As for Alpine, I don't really know. They're not really talking about upgrades, and I think they're now having to actually realize that they might have a fight for 5th on their hands. Until Austria, they were pretty much expecting to be in 5th place in no man's land, McLaren not troubling them. Now though, McLaren have just gone past them quickly in one race, and now might be even troubling the likes of Mercedes in 4th place. 5th place is not safe for Alpine. They could easily end up in 6th position when they've now got new investors, and it's not going to be a good look for them. So they've really got to pull their socks up and get on with it. I think one of them will score points, and I think it's going to be Gasly, because Ocon, he's now really showing he's a bit of a maverick of a driver. When he's on his day, he can get podiums, he can get wins. He did win in 2021. But when he's really not on it, he can make a lot of mistakes and get a lot of penalties. He's now got the record for the most penalties in a single race twice. That's kind of scrappy. Okay, on to the main predictions. Of course, Max Verstappen, he's going to win. By how much? Hard to say. I think that it could be maybe something between 15 and 20 seconds. It's not going to be the days of Mercedes in 2019 when they won by 40 seconds or something like that, but it's certainly going to be a very clear win for Max, and I think he's not going to be troubled by anyone else. The only person I think could actually get close to him, at least in terms of his past performance, is Carlos Sainz in second place. He is now buoyed up. He knows that he can win here. Ferrari do have upgrades, they have some good upgrades too, and hopefully if this Pirelli tyre configuration change actually benefits Ferrari, they could be up there in second place in the constructors and really giving Aston and Mercedes something to think about, something to chew over, hopefully not some Pirelli tyres. Third place, I think you know what I'm going to say, Lando Norris. That car, that McLaren, that MCL60 is definitely on the up and up. It's in the ascendancy. So he'll have plenty of practice time to refine it and hopefully make it so that means Lando Norris is not as exhausted by the end of it. And Oscar, he's now going to know a better benchmark. He had a really bad car to begin with, so it's only uphill from there, like we saw with George Russell for many seasons. He had a really mediocre car to start off with, so anything is a plus. Okay, fourth, Checo. I know I said that it's important for him to be on the podium, but in realistic terms, I feel like he may make a mistake here again, because like with Nick de Vries at AlphaTauri, he is now fighting for his career, and that is really going to make you cause some mistakes if you're not in the right frame of mind. So I feel like realistically, it's going to be P4 for Checo, and then Daniel's going to actually go and do the tyre test and then make his life even more difficult. Then in fifth place, it's got to be Fernando. I can't not put him there because he is mercurial. He is a wonder. They are getting upgrades, Aston, so it's not like they're staying put. I feel like he could genuinely give the top 5 some trouble, but a podium, I'm really not seeing it. The other top 3 teams do have more resources, they have more experience at the top, they know how to deploy their upgrades in a more effective manner, whereas Aston, they're sort of doing it in a drip feed thing as you go along. They're learning what it's like to be at the top, and I feel like they might be swallowed down into 4th position. So comment down below your thoughts and predictions, and let's get closer to that 10K goal.